My name's Mike Birch, European Supply Chain Manager for Marathon Oil. In this video, you're going to hear some examples of how we've used Nimbus Control to improve our business processes in our European operations.
Alvheim is a FPSO built to process oil and gas from 3 different reservoirs plus 2 tie-ins located west of Stavanger. We're working in a business where we have people at work for 2 weeks and then off work for 4 weeks. So the success for us is when we get people behaving consistently from shift to shift and complying with the procedures. Approximately a year ago, we took over operation of Alvheim from Maersk, who were previously contracted to operate Alvheim on our behalf. The biggest challenge we had was to take work processes linked to maintenance, to procurement, and linked to materials management, and to transfer those from Maersk to Marathon. These processes had been performed in Maersk for 3 years. We were now moving them into Marathon to be performed in accordance with a new Marathon way of doing these things, but using the same people.
There was a very significant effort to support the transition using Control, and then subsequently we've used Control to help us train and refine the processes we're using.
If people don't have a view of the larger picture and they don't know where they're going, then it's very easy to misunderstand the significance of a smaller part of that process, or to perform it wrong without understanding the consequences.
Understanding processes is very important for my job, because that gives me a clear expectations of what the people around me should be doing and what they expect me to be doing in a certain context.
By being able to explain via a process flow where the activity is going and what the interfaces are, what the start point is and what the end point is, it's easier to understand the significance of the individual transactions you're doing.
Firstly, the people that are involved in doing the work need to be part of the mapping exercise. Secondly, you need to have somebody who is clearly the owner of the process, engaged with it, somebody who has the authority to make changes where required. And thirdly, you do need to have people who've been trained to be able to author Control. And as I've said earlier on, it is not a tool that requires a significant amount of training, but it is important that people are trained to author. Finally, you need to make sure that you've got those sessions properly facilitated to make sure that everybody who is involved in the process is actually engaged and is contributing to the mapping of the processes and indeed to improving the processes for the future benefit of the team.
What I really like about it is that it gives us a uniform guidance to do our jobs, because I'm sitting in an office, my colleagues are sitting out at sea on the Alvheim FPSO, and we have a common tool that we all can look at and discuss what to use, how to use it and when to use it.
With Nimbus Control, it's easy to get an overview. You can start at a high level or a bird perspective and drill your way down.
When I log on, I see content personalized for my role, and I can easily search using keywords. The content is easy to use because it uses uniform symbols. The activity boxes, they're easy to understand, and I can explain to my colleagues in a few seconds what the input, output, the responsibilities, and what the tasks are. We can have types of attachments like procedures, work instructions, templates, web links, whatever is needed to execute our tasks.
We could link in documents. It also had a very good graphical presentation, and it was easy for people to use.
It also is a good documentation and verification of how we actually do our processes when questions arise, like for instance during a recent audit we had.
We also use storyboards to try and answer the questions when you would come up. The storyboards always also focused in on what that person needed to do to accomplish that task as well, in a form which they understood.
Storyboards are guided to us through specific process flows. They're useful for answering frequently asked questions, end-to-end procedures, and they're great for training new users.
Nimbus Control helps our buyers in performing their work every day. They use it moving in and out of SAP to support of the processes, and their work.
Having a Nimbus Control process guide alongside with working in SAP is very helpful, and then gives me the confidence that what I'm doing correctly, hence I can do it right the first time.
Everything is there. It's one place to go for it all, and that's the beauty about it.
Once the processes were available and designed, then we ran a series of workshops, both offshore and onshore, with the people who were going to use the processes, to make them familiar with the processes and to train them in how to use the tool itself.
If you look at this diagram here, this is about raising a purchase order for offshore materials. And you'll notice the first box, check material requisition is valid. That's the first thing that we have to do. If you look here, that we have proper material masters here, we have separator housing, O-rings and headsets. This allowed us to train the users using both Control and SAP simultaneously, so they could see where the process was and where SAP fitted into that process. Go back to Control here, we need to select a valid source. If you look at this is compressor parts, and this is going to be bought from GE, and you can probably tell that if you click into here, like this nozzle injection on here, it will tell you actually what the manufacturer is under the material master here, so we can see what we need to know.
I think the activity of having the workshops and building the processes is very influential in how much you will get engaged in improvements.
Nimbus is definitely 100% improvement, especially the courses that was done offshore. That created a lot of good feedback.
What I saw when we started implementing Nimbus was that it was a very effective way of initially capturing people's thoughts, re-presenting procedures, and then displaying them in such a way that they're very available to people.
That is one of the main benefits with Nimbus and compared with other workflow system, is that the linking of the documents into the system, and also link between SAP and Nimbus. You can actually link directly into the transition in SAP when you're sitting in Nimbus.
Very popular it is now. Go into Nimbus and you can see it yourself. That is what we say.
Well, in the past, finding out details to do a process, I would have to go to various sources, and it would be fragmented and often very detailed. It wouldn't give us the overview of how the process fit together, how different people or roles interacted together.
It is now described in a way that we all do it consistently.
What I'm noticing now is that the organisation as a whole is referring to a single set of processes with a single web location to go and find them. And not only in the operations department, but also in supply chain, which means multiple departments are now using a common tool.
Wherever we've used Nimbus Control, we've had really positive feedback from the users. The people that are actually using the processes see this as a way of making them more efficient, so that they're not wasting time and so that they can be more effective. They see the process from beginning to end, but they also see what their particular part in that process is, and that makes them more effective and more efficient. It gives us one place where people can go for information. Now, those benefits are ones that are going to be of general use across the company.
We see a value in the processes we've mapped already. We have the ambition of keeping those processes alive for several reasons. One is as a training tool to be able to allow us to bring new people into the operations group and allow them to understand how we do business. Secondly, it serves as a procedure to consistently allow people to perform things in the correct way. Even if they're an old hand and they've done it before, it's good to have the tool to be able to guide you through the process. And in terms of continuous improvement, it gives us an unlimited opportunity to go back, reassess how we're doing something and make changes.
More recently, we've moved into Poland, and as part of our entry into that new country, again, we're mapping our processes using the experience that we developed both in the UK and Norway. And very recently, we've started mapping some corporate processes in Houston as well.
The key thing you have to decide before you're going to try and run any business is what do I expect people to do? If you don't mind what they do, then you don't have to guide them. If you want people to do something in a particular fashion and you want them to do the same the next day, then you need to capture it in some sort of description of the process. If you know what you're trying to do, then the simplest way of being able to explain it to a lot of people, multiple locations, efficiently, is to take the time using a good visualization tool to build the processes, and then use that as your common vocabulary and your common training platform. And that's what Nimbus Control is helping us to do.